Hi friend, welcome back. In this video I'm going to share with you guys what I'm going to be doing with our Roma tomatoes from our garden. I have a sheet pan full of tomatoes from our garden. We still have more coming, but not enough to wait on doing something with these because tomatoes don't last very long. Yes, I could cut them, slice them, snack on them, but I have different types of tomatoes growing. I've got these little what are called Candyland cherry tomatoes. I don't know if you guys can see. I lost one. See those or not. These are great for just snacking, picking straight off the vine. And then of course I do have different actual slicing tomatoes that we use for sandwiches and things like that. So I don't really need to save these for fresh eating. I want to go ahead and we're going to start by roasting them. And all I'm going to do is just cut my tomatoes in half and then put them on my sheet pan off to the side, and then we're going to cut up some fresh garlic as well, and then we're going to toss all of this with some salt and olive oil, and we're going to roast this in the oven. Now depending on once they come out, I'm either going to puree them and make small batches of sauce that I can use to enhance sauces in the winter time, or I am going to just freeze the roasted tomatoes and garlic and then add them to various things later. I'm not 100% sure yet what I'm going to do, but the first thing I know I'm going to do is just get all of these things sliced. As you can see, some of the tomatoes are starting to get a little bit older. That's okay because I'm going to roast them. That's why I wanted to get this done now. Even though I have more coming, I can just do a couple of different batches if needed. Like I said, I don't have a super big garden. I am doing a vertical garden this year just for numerous reasons. And so I'm testing it out. I'm enjoying it so far. However, I know for next grow season, I'm going to plan things just a little bit differently in my vertical garden, so I can have enough tomatoes to really make a big batch of sauce. I grew up with my mom. Okay, this one's too far going. Grew up with my mom making homemade tomato sauce, and it was always the best. Okay, so for right now, this is the amount of Roma tomatoes that we have. So I am going to split it between these two pans. So let me get some spray. I'm just going to spray these down so that way the tomatoes don't stick to the pan while they're roasting. I'm going to go ahead, and granted there'll be olive oil tossed in them, but I still like to put that down just to help out. Switch them all over to here now. I probably should have done that ahead of time for this one, but that's okay. I didn't realize how many I would have until I started cutting them. Okay, back to this tray. All right, the next step we're going to do is grab some garlic, and I'm going to just put garlic on the pans as well, just because I think that'll be a nice flavor to go with the roasted tomatoes. All right. So I'm going to do 1 head of garlic for each pan, just because I don't think you can have too much garlic. Plus, we love roasted garlic anyways. Now I just have this little rubber tool for removing the garlic peel from the garlic. and it works just like that. Or the other option, if you don't have this tool, which I can link below, is just take your clove of garlic, your knife, and just press it on. You're going to pound down a little bit, and that can also help you get the skin off the garlic. And so if it doesn't come off easily, you can just bang it again and do it again. So I just like to use this little tool that I have. I feel like it works a touch better, but in the kitchen, that's how we always did it, was just with a knife to peel it off. So I'm gonna get all of this cleaned and then move on to the next step. Okay, I said easier, but I did want to do a few of them old school so you guys can see the difference on using the little tool or just using your knife, which again is easy to do. Both will work just fine. You could also use already minced garlic. I want to use fresh just because they're going to be bigger. I feel like the minced garlic is it could potentially burn in the oven. But if that's all you have, or if you don't even have minced garlic, but you've got garlic powder, just toss that on to your tomatoes when you're adding in the olive oil before you roast them. Now, garlic does get sticky, so sometimes the peel does not want to come off, or sometimes it wants to stick to your hand. So I'm just going to slide that off for now. I will clean it up in a minute. And I'm just going to cut the garlic in half and add it to the pan. I'm not trimming anything up. If they're smaller pieces like this one, which looks like I missed, I will just put this piece on the pan itself. The garlic is all sliced and now onto the pans. I'm going to go ahead and drizzle some olive oil on top of the tomatoes and garlic, and then top that with some salt. You want to just make sure that there is enough oil to cover everything, so that way it will roast nicely in the pan. The salt not only helps enhance the flavor, but it also helps to draw out some of the moisture from the tomatoes, which you're going to just be using in your sauce, but it just helps create a little bit more liquid for that sauce. So I decided to go ahead and add in some pepper as well after I did the salt, just again to enhance the flavor just a touch more. And so you'll just want to add a pinch. I don't measure when it comes to things like this. I just eyeball it. And so if you're not a pepper person, skip this step and it'll be totally fine. You know, if you are, just add what you like, and then go ahead and toss the tomatoes and garlic. Make sure everything's evenly coated, so that way all of the salt and pepper and the olive oil are on each one. And then we're going to go ahead and pop this in the oven and get this roasted. The tomatoes and garlic smelled absolutely amazing. Even my daughter came out of her room and was like, "Oh my goodness, Mom, what are you cooking?" It did take 45 minutes in my oven. I like to start, at 30 minutes and check it and see. Everyone's ovens are different. If you want to roast it a touch more, you could put it in there even longer than 45 minutes, but I really felt like 45 minutes was just the right amount of time for the tomatoes. All I'm going to do now is put my tomatoes and garlic into a bowl. You want to try to make sure that you scrape the pans and get off all the goodness that's on the pan. Don't miss anything. And you want all of those juices as well that I've cooked out of the tomato, because there's a ton of flavor in that. And once I have everything in the pan, I'm going to go ahead and use my immersion blender, or some people refer to it as a stick blender, to process the tomatoes and puree them. Basically, if you don't have one, you can use a blender, and that will work as well too. Just remember, using an immersion blender, while hot, it can splatter if you're not careful. So just make sure that you are when you're pureeing your tomato sauce. Okay, so what I decided to do instead of freezing the tomatoes is I'm actually going to can them. It's a very small batch, but when I thought ahead to some of the other projects I want to do, which is freezing some fresh corn, I need that freezer space versus having the tomatoes in there. And so we're going to just make a very small batch of it, but I've got my water bath canner going. It's ready. My jars are in the oven and they are sterilized. And I've been keeping my sauce nice and warm since I pureed it. So let's go ahead and get all that together so we can get that processed. Now I am using and following the directions from Ball. I have this book right here. And so the other thing you're going to need if you do, if you can tomatoes, is you have to have citric acid. And this is, whoa, that may not come into focus here. Let's see. Nope. Okay, maybe best just to leave right here. Okay, so what you need is citric acid, and that is because tomatoes need this to be added to them in order to be canned safely. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in as well. So I've got that. So let me grab the jars out of the oven. Now I did sterilize 5 of them, though I think I'm only gonna get 3 to 4 at most. And again, this is not a big batch. But I'm just utilizing what I have because I don't want to waste anything. My jars are sterilized. They're nice and hot. I've got my funnel. I'm just going to fill, actually what I'm going to do first, citric acid. And it's just according to the recipe. It is a 1/4 teaspoon. Let me just verify really quick. I'm almost positive 1/4 teaspoon, but I want to make sure. Yes, a 1/4 teaspoon. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and add into my jars. I'm going to start with 3, and then we'll see how many we fill up. You want to make sure when you do that you also leave some headspace. I usually like to go by the bottom of the rim of the glass jar right here. I don't want to pick it up because obviously it's hot from being in the oven and being sterilized. So I do think we're only going to get maybe 3. So let's see what we can get out of this one. All right. It's not going to get quite 3 full ones, I don't think, but I am going to try to scrape every last little bit that I can. And again, I'm okay with that. You know, I think if I had a big batch, well, yes, I could put a lot more in my pantry at one time. This works too. I'm at the mercy of how quickly my garden grows. And so, but I don't want to, my tomatoes were starting to get, a few of them were starting to wrinkle, so it was time to get this done, regardless of how much it would make. Okay, so not quite full on the 3rd one. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab a spoon real quick. I'm just going to take a little bit out of this jar right here and a little bit out of the other one, just to try to make them get as close as possible to being even. I think that's good right there. That's about as good as it's going to get, because that's just what I have. Okay, so typically I have a tool designed to just stir the inside of the jar, make sure that there's no bubbles. It comes with the whole kit that you buy from Ball when you're for canning. I can't find it, which means that it got put away somewhere that it wasn't supposed to be. So for now, I'll use this. Just give it a stir, make sure there's no air bubbles in there. And then I'm going to wipe off the jars. You want to make sure that the jars are clean, so that way it seals properly. And again, this is just, tomatoes just need to be water bath canned. So this is real easy. Again, this is quite a bit of water that I have to put into the canner to do this, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. I am just going to enjoy the fact that I've got 3 pints of homemade tomato sauce that I can enjoy from our garden. So let's get the lids on. Alright, so I'm just going to put 3 lids. Again, everything is clean. And you just want to turn it, put it on enough to watch it turn. You don't want to tighten it too much, but you want to make sure it's tight. So. And you do want to watch and see, sometimes this happens, I just noticed it on this one. There can be dents in the lid. Sometimes they come damaged from the store. I always have extra lids on hand. You want to make sure that it is not dented, so that way it gives a good seal on it. This is why it's always a good idea to keep extra lids on hand. So, okay. All right, these are ready. I'm going to get... And it's just 3 that are going in, so it's not a lot, and that's okay. But we're just going to put the 3 in there. Oh, that's really hot. And lower this down. And then we're going to cover it. And we're going to set a timer for 35 minutes. So for the pint jars, it's going to process for 35 minutes. But for the quart, it'll go for 40 minutes. Tomatoes have processed for 35 minutes. I turned off the heat, removed the lid, and allowed them to sit for another 5 minutes as instructed. And now I am removing them from the water bath canner, and I'm going to be placing them on a cooling rack, and they are going to stay there for 24 hours to cool. I've already heard my lids pop. Again, I only had 3 of them, so it didn't take too long for the 3 of them to pop. Once they are completely cooled after 24 hours, I will be removing the outer rim, just to always be able to keep an eye on the seal to make sure it has stayed. So I just want to thank you guys for joining me today as I did this small batch canning of the tomatoes I had. I have been wanting to get this done, and I look forward to seeing if my garden will give me even more tomatoes where I can do several more pints. And if not, we will just enjoy the 3 that we got this year, and I will see you guys in the next video.